A warm welcome to you again. Nigeria's external reserves diminished by 2.8% in 1 month, dropping to $23.95 billion last month compared to $24.6 billion as of September. The latest external reserves position released by the Central Bank of Nigeria shows that the reserves derived mostly from the proceeds of crude oil sales fell by $667 million as the country's earnings continues to shrink. The central bank attributes the developments to the spate of attacks on oil installations and pipeline vandalism in the Niger Delta region. Now, the Debt Management Office has fixed the maximum limit for the federal government's domestic and external borrowing at $22.08 billion for the 2017 fiscal year. This is part of the policy recommendations of the Debt Management Office contained in its 2016 report of the annual debt sustainability analysis. Now, according to the Management Office, new domestic borrowing has been pegged at $5.52 billion, while new external borrowing is put at $16.56 billion for 2017. The office noted that these amounts were recommended maximum that could be borrowed, taking into advantage the absorptive capacity of the domestic debt market and the options available in the external market. The Management Office also recommends that government should explore other alternative and viable sources of financing for the country's huge infrastructure requirements. Well, to talk more on this, I have joining from our Abuja studios the Director General, Debt Management Office. That's Dr. Ibrahim Nwankwo. Thanks for joining us at this time.
Thank you very much.
Now, my first question will be, what is the Debt Management Office stance on Nigeria's external borrowing proposal of approximately $30 billion, which has now been turned down by the Senate?
Of course, the submission by Mr. President to National Assembly was for Nigeria to be able to access external financing to the tune of $29.9 billion for 3 years. Let me emphasize, for 3 years. So it's a medium-term external borrowing program. It is not a plan for 1 year, it's a plan for 3 good years. And that is very consistent with the DMO advisory to the government and people of Nigeria based on our 2016 debt sustainability analysis, which takes into account the country's capacity for the next 20 years to be able to deal with the debts it accumulates for now. We recommended that the country can borrow as much as $22 billion for 2017 alone. Let me repeat, for 2017 alone. That is for 1 year. So if you take into account that the Mr. President's presentation to National Assembly is asking for approximately $30 billion for 3 years, which if you do arithmetic works out to an average of about $10 billion per annum. $10 billion per annum is much below the amount we have advised that we can comfortably, prudently borrow. So we are, of course, DMO, we are working for the government and people of Nigeria. And the government always relies on our advice. The government wants to be able to develop the economy in a sustainable manner. And it depends on the various agencies, the various MDS to make inputs into how best to manage the economy. And so what the government has done, the presentation by Mr. President, is completely consistent with our outlook, our projections of the future of the Nigerian economy. In particular, as you read out part of the recommendations in the debt sustainability analysis, we did emphasize that while government is doing this borrowing to fund critical infrastructure projects, other sources should be encouraged. In particular, the private sector will have to continue playing some lead role in mobilizing resources for the risk sector as well as for infrastructure. And that's why part of the program is for government to support the private sector to participate in public-private partnerships, in concessioning, for example, in build, operate, and transfer, for example, and other variants of public-private partnership. So the fact that the government is taking a lead role does not mean that the private sector should not play its role. Indeed, in terms of the overall resources required, the private sector is expected to contribute a minimum of 48% of the investments we need in the medium to long term. If you permit me, let me also make this a preamble. And that is the idea of how much resources Nigeria needs to deal with its development challenge have been well established. As far back as 5 years ago, it was established, and most Nigerians agreed, most external experts agreed, that Nigeria needed a minimum of $25 billion US investment per annum to be able to deal with the huge deficits it has in transportation infrastructure, in power infrastructure, in railway infrastructure, in housing infrastructure, and other types of infrastructure, including social development infrastructure, health, and education. So it was well established we needed that much per annum for the next 5 to 7 to 10 years. In addition, because of the collapse of oil prices, the revenue available annually to government has dropped by an average of about $20 billion US per annum since the mid-2014 because of the collapse of oil prices. By implication, the simple arithmetic shows that in addition to what Nigeria needed before the collapse of oil prices, it needs additional $20 billion US per annum to be able to get out of the woods. So we need a total of $45 billion US per annum. What it means is that the country should strategically harness all available resources, equity, debt, revenue, public sector, private sector. And it is in that context that the requirements from the government of the Federation Assembly. So has created the National Assembly is not just for the federal government project, it's for the projects of all the states of the Federation,
okay, Doctor,
which need financing from external sources.
Okay, Doctor, in as much as I told you, like, we know of the effect of the drop in oil price, which you have actually indicated as a shortfall of about $20 billion per annum. But now, back to the borrowing plan. The presidency has now said that it would give details on the proposed loan to the Senate to secure its approval. But it doesn't appear to get a smooth sail at the lower chamber as well, considering speculations in the media. Let me ask the question this way. How hopeful are you?
It's not a question of hope. The National Assembly is doing its job. This is a process of consensus building. This is a process of developing a plan which we want to implement. So everybody is involved. Prominently, the National Assembly has to be involved. The media has to be involved. The market women have to be involved. The media is involved. That's why you are asking me to talk about it this afternoon, so that all Nigerians can participate. So we're in a process. So in that process, there will be observations by various interest groups pointing out various issues which will be reconciled, which will be adjusted. So it's in that process we are. So what we are doing is we are undergoing a normal process of dealing with a challenge and trying to formulate the optimum strategy for dealing with the challenge. So there's nothing abnormal about what's happening. I believe that all Nigerians will eventually, in the next, in the shortest possible time, come to a common agreement on the presentation of Mr. President, appreciating that the whole essence is for the capital expenditure in infrastructure to lift us out of the recession in which we are, permanently establish our infrastructure so that the cost of production in the economy will be low, so that the economy will be competitive, so we'll be able to export a variety of products instead of oil, so that we'll be able to reduce our imports, because with the huge infrastructure, our manufacturing will be producing competitively, and therefore we would have no business consuming imported manufactured goods since they are manufactured here, so that there will be savings in foreign exchange, not only will we reduce the money we spend in importing food and other consumable items, but for the fact that the economy is to me, we'll be able to export agro and agro-processed products, manufactured products, possibly 4 or 5 solid mineral items in the next 4 to 5 years, so that there is also an additional inflow of foreign exchange. So we will gain from the import substitution side, and we will also gain from the export diversification side. But the critical requirement for all this to happen is that we have to have reliable and sufficient infrastructure. And that's what Mr. President's presentation for a medium-term plan is all about. Let me also add that there's great wisdom in Mr. President presenting a medium-term plan. Instead of a 1-year plan, he's presenting a plan for 3 years. So that to serve Nigerians and investors, local and foreign, as forward, what we call forward guidance. All of us will have a good idea of where we are moving to. And therefore, various economic agents, households, businesses will take proper positions now to take advantage of the future developments. And taking position now will help reactivate, resuscitate the economy speedily.
Indeed, I agree with you that it's diversification all the way. We need to look outside crude oil, particularly at this time. Now, Doctor, we're going to go on a short break now, and we'll be back with more on Business Nigeria. Stay with us on the show. Many thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Business Nigeria. We are discussing issues surrounding the planned borrowing by the federal government. That's to the tune of $29.9 billion actually being turned down now by the National Assembly. But there are still moves, at least, to make them understand why they need to get this fund. And we have the Director General of the Debt Management Office, the person of Dr. Abraham Nwankwo, who's been giving insights into issues surrounding this planned borrowing by the Nigerian government. Now, Doctor, now some analysts have argued that borrowing might not be the wisest solution to solving the infrastructure problems. I totally agree with you that we need to fix infrastructures if we want to diversify. You know, there has been a lot of talks about foreign direct investments. You also talked about public-private partnership. So people are talking about private investments. You know, shouldn't Nigeria be exploring these options too more than ever?
Nigeria is exploring all the options. It is not optimal to go along one track. We are pursuing all the possible tracks. Why are we doing so? A couple of reasons. First of all, in every economy, there are going to be a minimum volume of activities that only the public sector can undertake in any economy whatsoever. That's number one. Secondly, given the volume, the requirement we have, as I have said, an estimate of a minimum of $5 billion per annum continuously for the next 7 to 10 years, that the private sector alone will be able to provide all this. Remember, the private sector will also use both debt and equity to provide make their own contribution. So also the governments of the Federation will contribute both equity and debt. Their equity in this case is their revenue. Now, so we need both equity, we need revenue. We need debt. We need public sector, we need private sector. We need PPPs, we need BOTs, we need concessions, but invariably we also need debt. And even for the private sector, they themselves need debt from domestic sources, from external sources. And one aspect of the wisdom of Mr. President's presentation is by saying, let's go and look for this much outside. The President is saying, let us leave the space, whatever space available in the domestic economy, so that when the private sector keys into this program, they can easily access what is available locally to also make their contributions to the whole process of resuscitating the economy. Because when government focuses on critical infrastructure, railroads, power supply, in the process, what it's saying that is providing the enabling environment for the private sector to lead in manufacturing, to lead in agriculture and agro-processing, to lead in solid minerals processing. That's what government is saying. And so when government is moving, it's also taking into account that it has to create the space for the private sector to participate optimally. So there's wisdom in government saying, look, let us take more of our funds from external sources so that the private sector will have more room locally. That is the second point. The third point is that domestic cost of funds are 70% than external cost of funds. So at this point in our life, it also makes sense that if government takes more of its borrowings from the external source, it is reducing the pressure on the funds available domestically, and that will help bring down the domestic cost of funds so that these funds will be more affordable for the private sector. So that's another good reason why we need to diversify. In this context, a natural question that will arise is, why is the cost of funds higher in the domestic economy? The answer is, we take the answer that is nearest to the discussion we have already had, and that is that because of infrastructure deficiency, the fact that infrastructure is not adequate and that is not reliable means that the cost of production is higher. And because the cost of production is higher, prices of finished products are higher. And because the cost of finished products are higher, interest rates have to be higher. These are fixing the monetary policy rate. They have to look at the inflation rate. And if the inflation rate is very high, they cannot afford. It will be unreasonable and irrational to fix the monetary policy rate low. Therefore, there is wisdom in attacking the infrastructure deficit for various reasons. It will be the ultimate solution for making the economy a low-cost economy, bringing the cost of funds down and making interest rates low. But more importantly, it is the surest route. It's about the only route, if you like, for getting out of the recession, for making sure that if we produce things cheaply more in Nigeria, Nigerians will now be consuming more of locally produced goods, and we save foreign exchange, and that will improve our reserves, that will strengthen our exchange rate. It also means that because we have infrastructure and we can produce goods competitively, which means the goods we produce will not be costlier than what other countries produce. Therefore, we can take them to the international capital market. We can take our processed goods to the agricultural market, to the international capital market. We can take manufactured goods. We can take our solid minerals. We can take our crafts, arts and crafts, to the international capital market. We can take our textile products to the international capital market. Indeed. We can take our shoe products from Kano and from Aba to the international capital. And we make more foreign exchange. That is how it is going to work. Therefore, we need to mobilize resources from all options and go ahead very boldly to get ourselves out of recession. You don't get out of recession by being timid. You get out of recession by taking the bull by the horn and once and for all launching yourself on a trajectory of sustainable and inclusive growth. That's what was. Remember that as these things we are talking about happen, the more you invest in railways, in housing, in roads, in power infrastructure, you are creating employment. It's not that you are going to wait until you finish the infrastructure before you create employment. These things will create massive employment with the various multiplier impacts. And then when the factories, when the agro-processors, when the solid minerals factories, when the petrochemical factories start taking advantage of this, then you have a second round of a multiplier of employment opportunities. And this is the path to reducing poverty. Thank you.
All right, Doc. Doc, I'm so interested in, you talked about improving reserves and strengthening the exchange rate. That's really important at this time to attract investors. Yes. But before I let you go, Doctor, a school of thought feels that recovered loot and even some monies in the Treasury single account could also help bridge some of the infrastructure gap. But they say authorities seems not to be working in that direction. What would be your advice, or what do you make of this?
And it is not correct to say the authorities are not working in that direction. The authorities are working in the direction of using resources from all conceivable sources, resources from all conceivable sources.
Okay.
So government is working on all fronts. Nigeria should be guaranteed, should be assured that government is leaving no stone unturned. Government is making sure that we are tapping resources. Let me also say here that we are not just talking of debt, borrowing. A lot of effort is being put in by the Honorable Minister of Finance and by the Chairman of Inland Revenue, working seriously to improve revenue. In particular, hundreds and thousands of people who are supposed to pay tax, individuals and corporates, are now being brought into the tax bracket. And you can be sure in the next 2 to 3 years, we are not waiting for the next 2 to 3 years, but progressively, you will now find out that even our tax revenue will more like double over the next 2 to 3 years, because the Inland Revenue has introduced new initiatives with the support of the Honorable Minister of Finance. And therefore, it's not a question of borrowing. We are improving our ability to generate internal revenue, even without raising the tax rates. Mind, we are not raising the tax rates, but we are making sure that those who are supposed to pay tax pay it promptly, pay the right amount. And that is critical for the whole process. So it's a comprehensive approach to changing the economy to be a viable one.
I must thank you, Dr. Abraham Nwankwo, for your time on Business Nigeria, giving insights and clearing the air on issues surrounding the borrowing plans and also the debt profile of the country. I must thank you for joining us on this program. Well, that's our package for you today on Business Nigeria. Well, join us another time for more insightful analysis like this one. Well, I leave you with the figures of the exchange rate as it stands today. I am Tolulokpe Ogunjobi. On behalf of the entire production crew, thank you very much for watching. Join us again next time for a fresh one. Bye.